started. So, good afternoon everybody and welcome. My name's Brett Janelle and I'm going to be your host today, along with my wife and business partner back there, Annette Janelle. Welcome everyone to the Five Living Truth series.
Thank you.
Welcome. Just interested, who's here for the first time? Oh, a lot of people. And who's been here before? Well, great. Who didn't put up their hand? Fantastic. So for those who have been here before, one of the things you'll have with you is a yellow sheet, which is a survey. We love to get feedback, and one of the things, we always get great reviews here, but one of the things has been sound, not being able to hear. So has anyone noticed? We have speakers. Is this better?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay today?
Yes.
The people in the back hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Once I have the panelists come up, because we've got different microphones, we're just testing this and trying to get used to new technology. If you can't hear anyone, just put your hand up or give me a thumbs up and I'll make sure we turn up the microphone forward. Fair enough? Excellent. Thank you so much for being here. We have a full room almost. We're actually turning people away. We had over 95 people register. So we had to unfortunately turn some people away, but we're video recording it, so hopefully those who missed out, we can get that out to them. I just want to recognise someone who I don't normally recognise people here, but I'd like to recognise Kristen. Does everyone know who Kristen is? Kristen, can you put up your hand? So Kristen is the person who takes your reservations, who gets the room set up, who reminds everyone about the seminar being on. She's the person who makes this all work. So I just want to recognise all the hard work she puts into this for everybody. So you should all have a sheet of paper. You have several sheets of paper, but one of them has our sponsors on it. If you could just pull out that sheet, it's actually on the back. It's the question page that we can use for the seminar. But on the back it has a list of our sponsors, and I just wanted to take a moment and just make mention of our sponsors and make these events successful. So our sponsors don't just come to us and we accept whoever. All of our sponsors are hand-picked and vetted. We only have sponsors that we feel very confident with, that we would recommend to our family. So I just wanted to say that because they're great resources and they're in the back of the room. They've got a lot of experience. They truly come from the heart in terms of helping people. And I just want to make sure you take advantage of them. And if they don't know, then they'll certainly point you in the right direction to whoever they need to be able to answer the questions you have. So they're going to be at the back of the room at the end of this, and I just encourage you to go up and meet and greet them. And if you have questions for them, certainly ask, and don't hesitate to book a consultation with them if it makes sense depending on your circumstances. And then something else about our sponsors and our panelists is these people give up their time to be here to help. So one of our rules for those who've been here for a while, you would know that there is absolutely no selling at these events. We won't allow anyone who's going to come here and do the hard sell. So meeting with any of our sponsors or our speakers, they're not going to try to sell you on anything. They're truly coming from the heart just to help you. So just know that. If they were selling, we wouldn't allow them to be part of this event series. What else do I quickly cover? So just at the end of the seminar, you've got a yellow sheet and evaluation form. We really appreciate you turning those back into us. If there's things we can improve, certainly let us know. And also, if you wish to register for the upcoming seminar, Kristen has put a box down there somewhere, so you can just tick the box and we'll automatically get you registered instead of you having to call us or go to the website just to try to make it easier for you. So feel free to do that. Ticking the box isn't enough without your name or some contact information. Otherwise we have no way of being able to print out name tags and so forth. But just put your name. If you know we have everything, we at least need a name so we can make sure we get you registered. Excellent. Does anyone remember what today's topic is? How it's paid for senior living. Very good. Excellent. So why do you think we're talking about paying for senior living? Any ideas?
No pressure, it costs less, more, the same as living your own.
To age in place, yeah, that's a great question. We'll definitely answer that today. So the reason why we're talking about it is when Annette and I as real estate agents, and for those who haven't been here before, my wife and I, we're real estate agents. We focus on our business on helping seniors, retirees who are either looking to downsize, age in place, but are making some kind of transition and trying to work out, what do I do? Do I stay where I am? Do I move? And actually half the people we meet with, it makes more sense for them to age in place, and that's part of what we do. But we've spent all of our time working on helping retirees because the skills and the things us as retirees need are slightly different. So when Annette and I go out and meet with clients or prospective clients, that are moving into or looking to move to senior living, the biggest question we always get is, or that they're concerned about, is the cost. How much is it going to cost me to move to this community? Or how much is it going to cost me to have care to come into my home? So that's something we're continually being asked, and that's how this topic came about today, to try to answer that for as many people as possible. So when we say paying for it, paying for senior living, what do we mean by that? So that could cover a whole range of things. It could be moving into an independent living community, and we have a number of communities here today. It could be moving into assisted living, it could be going into nursing care, memory care, or it could be just aging in place in our home. How do we keep financing that, as perhaps we need to have care, have some providers come in and help us in our home? So we're going to cover all of those today. So with that said, let me invite our panellists up. If I could have Rich, Dennis and Ivan come up and join me. And while they're just coming up, the way this is going to work for those who are new, yeah, please take a seat. Yeah, great. The way this will work is that I've prepared, and Annette, we've prepared a series of questions that I'm going to ask the panellists on your behalf. That'll take us roughly about 45 minutes, till roughly maybe 3 o'clock. And then we're going to open it up to question and answer, so you can get your questions answered. So what I'm going to ask you to do, as questions come to mind, on the notepad that we've provided or on the page titled questions to ask, just jot your questions down, and then when we open it up to question and answer, we'll definitely get your questions answered. Is everyone okay with that? We just write our questions down so we can get through the first part. And hopefully as we do that, your questions will be answered along the way anyway.
No, it's just me.
Okay, so let's just start. So guys, if I could start with you, Rich, could you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and why you're here today?
Sure. My name is Rich Schultz. I've been, for 20-some years, I was an estate planning attorney, elder law attorney, now bridging in a little bit into financial planning, financial consulting. And really what we do, what I'm here for is we help people a lot with the Veterans Aid and Attendance Benefit, which you may have heard about. It's a stipend from the government that eligible veterans and their spouses get to help pay for long-term care or wellness services. But inside of that, we help people, that's what I'm here for. Professionally, what we do is we help people make sure that what happens is what they want to have happen. The firm for 27 years now has existed to partner with our clients as they transition from, working years to retirement to care homes, and then helping spouses when someone passes away, and families when parents pass away. And that's our right. That's what we get to do.
Thank you, Rich. Dennis?
My name is Dennis Eckmeyer. I'm a financial planner, and I've been in the Reno area for about 30 years. I work for Eagle Strategies, and I'm a registered rep with New York Life. And I specialize in long-term care insurance, long-term care planning, wealth distribution and wealth management, and overall financial planning. And I've known Rich for a number of years, and he does a good job, and I'm happy that Brett and Annette invited me here today.
Thank you, Dennis. Ivan?
Over there?
Hi everyone, I'm Ivan Espinoza. I'm with Access to Healthcare Network. We represent the State Health Insurance Medicare Counseling Program. I've been providing Medicare counseling for the last 7 years, and we are here to answer any questions. Thanks for inviting us, Brett.
You bet. Thanks, Ivan. So just a couple of quick surveys. Who has a checking or a savings account? Show of hands? That's good. Excellent. And keep your hand up if you have $1 or more. Okay, good. Good to hear. And then who is on Medicare? Who's making use of Medicare? Yeah, good. Excellent. And the last question is, who do we have here who is a veteran or a spouse of a veteran? Oh, wow. Wow. Wonderful. Do you think we have the right group of panelists here? Yes. Based on our audience? I think so. And just on our veterans, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of our veterans for what you've done for us. So can I just recognise our veterans that are here today, please? Thank you. So I'd like to start with you, Rich, because that's kind of our topic, really for veterans at the moment. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of Veterans Aid and Attendance?
Sure. The Veterans Aid and Attendance program, as we know it today, came about 1953, and it was created as, like all veterans benefits originally, as a recruiting tool to attract people into the military with a promise that will help make sure you're taken care of through your lifetime. It's been funded fully since that time. The allocation is really for veterans and their spouses who served during a time of conflict. And what that means for this purpose is 90 days of active duty, does not have to be concurrent, just 90 days on a DD-214 or discharge paper. At least one of those days fell during an official period of conflict, which is what now it's World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then the ongoing issues in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. And I think that the biggest mistake I think that we get with people, one of the primary ones, is to think you've got to be shot at or have been hurt while serving. There's no requirement. This is fully called the non-service connected disability pension with aid and attendance. So it's not connected to whatever you may or may not be getting for your service-connected issues.
Great, thank you. And can you just tell us what the benefit would be, financial benefit, for a veteran's spouse or a married couple?
Yeah, the benefit, it's actually a check or electronic payment into your checking account. If it's a widow, the widow is going to get $1,154 a month, each month, tax-free for the rest of his or her life.
Can you just say that amount again slowly?
Oh yeah, sure, $1,154 each month. A veteran, single veteran, is going to get $1,792 a month. Again, tax-free benefit. If there's a married couple and the spouse needs care, the amount of the benefit is $1,404. If the veteran needs care, the amount of benefit is $2,127. And if it's married couple, both need care, both veterans, it's $2,007. I've never done one of those, but it's $2,757, if I remember right. And it's tax-free, and it doesn't, the beautiful part is a lot of the, I know Dennis can talk about long-term care that has some real benefits like this as well, but you don't have to be in assisted living. You could be living independently and having someone come in and provide for care. It could be used for that. If you're in assisted living, it absolutely can be used to help pay for the rent and the cost of care there.
Right. So how much tax do I pay on this benefit?
There is no tax on the benefit.
No tax.
And it doesn't change your tax for Social Security, your income for Social Security purposes either. So your Social Security shouldn't become taxable either.
So let's just talk a little bit about qualifications for it. So you already mentioned about periods of time that one needed to serve, and that's kind of black and white based on those. What about income requirements? Does it matter what assets or income I have? Does that come into it?
Yeah, the requirement for the benefit is over age 65 or unemployable, qualifying military service, and forgive me, but I don't have the dates down exactly, but it's, again, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the ongoing conflict. The only odd thing in World War II is that World War II ended December 31, 1946. So it went on a little bit longer than you and I think it did before everybody demobilized. Then the next one I sort of count together is that you need care. You must be receiving assistance with at least two of 5 activities of daily living. So those are feeding, which means hand-to-mouth feeding, so you can't feed yourself. Bathing, so you need help bathing, even if it's somebody standing to make sure you don't fall down. Transferring, which is help up and down out of a chair or out of a bed or a wheelchair. Toileting, and clothing, dressing. Yeah, dressing yourself. And again, it's interesting because for our purposes, for this purpose, you don't need this. There's no requirement that the assistance be every day. So again, if you need assistance with dressing, for example, and if the weather's perfect and you have a great night's sleep and you've had lots of food and water, your fingers work really well, and you don't need any help dressing, great. But if your arthritis kicks in when it starts to get cold and you need somebody helping you button up your jackets, that's assistance. As long as it's on your contract for care, it's a deductible medical expense. Income-wise, again, one of the more odd things, there's no income limit. The requirement to get the full benefit amount is that you're spending at least $1 more for care than you have coming in as fixed income. Doesn't matter if you have $12,000 a month coming in. If you pay $12,050, you're going to get the benefit. You have $1,000 a month coming in, you're paying $3,000 a month, you're going to get the benefit. The asset test is a little bit wonky for the VA. There is no bright line. Many of us may have heard of a program called Medicaid. That's another government-funded program. There's significant differences between Medicaid and the VA program, but Medicaid has bright lines. If you have more than a certain amount of money in your bank, even by a penny, you're done. The VA doesn't have that. What the regulations actually say is the amount of money the veteran or the spouse is allowed to keep must be determined based on their age, qualifying medical care, how much they're paying for care, income levels, etc. So there's quite a range there. And what we always tell people is don't let your assets stop you from at least talking about it. Because if this doesn't work for you, maybe there's a long-term care option that might even be available where you are right now.
Great, thanks, Rich. And then if I'm like a spouse of a deceased veteran, how would I go about finding out whether I as the spouse still qualify based on my deceased?
Yeah, the qualification for the spouse is actually based on the veteran's eligibility. So again, it's interesting. So we talked about a lot of widows' claims, where a widow comes in or a family comes in and says, mom needs help. It's usually mom needs help, and this is what we're paying, etc. And the first question we always ask is, was she married to the veteran when the veteran died? Big one. Did he get remarried? If you get remarried, you divorce the veteran, you divorce the benefit. You get remarried. Better hope the new husband's a veteran. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah. But then the next one is, again, when did your husband serve? When did your dad serve? It's the same eligibility requirements beyond that.
Okay, great, thank you. And then you mentioned about in-home care. What types of care are included or excluded with the benefit, if any?
Yeah, the benefit is a stipend, so it's not a payment for anything. If you're eligible for it, they're going to give you the money, and how you use that is up to you. Now, kind of a lot of that question, though, I think, is you need to be receiving and paying for, again, assistance with 2 of the 5 activities of daily living. So for example, let's say you're paying for somebody to come by from Amanda Healthcare and Home Health, and it's $25 an hour, $30 an hour, $50 an hour, but it's only 2 times a week, right? So it's $100 a week. As long as what you're paying for care exceeds your fixed income, you're going to get the benefit. Let's say you're doing that, and then the rest of the time they're in your house, they're cleaning it for you. That's deducted. That becomes part of the expense because you're paying for the assistance. So it's a little bit wonky. That's why I tell people, we've got our trifolds back there. There's a number on it. If you or someone you love or know is in care, needs assistance, call us, because we can, very quickly drill down to what matters and then give an answer, at least a tentative response of whether or not you're eligible.
Great. Can you just talk a little bit about the application process? You said you've got information here to talk to you. I know people can do it on their own, but there's some pros and cons of that.
Yeah, definitely. So what I'm about to say is meant as no disrespect to the veteran service officers, the state of Nevada, etc. This benefit is all we do. This is my CYA portion. So we know a lot about it. When you talk to a veteran service officer, you talk to the state, they're helping people with every benefit. And the VA is a huge program. The VA benefits programs, it covers schooling, it covers home loans, it covers health care. They have their own long-term care models. It covers this program. The application itself, if you go down to the VA and you pick it up, it's a generic application for all VA benefits. It's about, the actual part you'll complete is about 30 pages long, 27 pages. Most of that you're not going to need. Now, if you turn in all 37 pages, you better complete them, or 27, you better complete them. But most of it's not required for this benefit. So one of the things that we do is, if somebody comes to us after the initial call, we always have them get medical reports, and yet your medical report, the report your doctor gave you last week, doesn't work. It's got to be on the VA form, and the proper VA form. They change those forms periodically, and you've got to make sure you've got the right form. Then you've got to find proof that you're paying for and receiving the care. And again, there's a form for that the VA requires, but that receipt that you paid, cascades $4,500 for care, not enough. The receipt doesn't qualify. It's got to be on the VA form. So it's a very specific process. You can do it yourself. Lots of groups out there helping with people. The way I first learned about it was through the American Legion. I had a client come in. I wasn't a client at the time. I had a gentleman come in. He was a World War II vet, discharged out of Stead Air Force Base. He was probably, if I'm being generous, 16 when he landed. He was third wave on the beach and went all the way across Europe. Came to me, went to the Veteran Service Officer, one of my former employees was there, and I learned about the benefit that it was available, but I didn't know about it, enough about it to help anyone. And she said, oh yeah, no, go pound sand. If he needs care, go to Vegas. Because he had a veterans home down in Vegas. And I said, first off, no, that's wrong. There is a benefit here. Secondly, this guy who's been in Sparks since 1945 is not leaving. And so I called the American Legion. That's where I started my training and learning about it. But again, lots of people help. What we do with people, if we help you, again, call. We have that screening call, and then we send you an email with the template forms to fill out. Our documents, our forms are tailored only for this benefit. One of the biggest things that we offer people is a simplified application.
Thanks, Rich. So I've heard that a number of veterans who have attempted to do the application process on themselves, they'll keep getting letters back from the VA saying denied and will give up in the process. Can you just talk, why is that? Are they being denied or is it something else?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's two things that happen there. Frequently, you don't turn in a complete application. And the VA sends you back a letter that says, we're denying your claim. And then if you can actually make it through the rest of the stuff to the second page, there's a bullet point list of some of the things that you're missing. Most people never get there. They just stop at the denied. The second thing that people do very frequently is they apply before they're eligible. So they apply and say, I'm going to need somebody to come in and help me. I'm going to move into an assisted living community, but I'm not there yet. I'm going to go ahead and apply for the benefit and see if I'm eligible, and then decide to move in. Can't do that. Remember, receiving the care, paying for the care. Until you're paying for it, you're not eligible. That's probably the biggest reason people get denied. The other reason people get denied is not so much a letter from the VA, but they go, and again, the VSOs in town, the Veteran Service Officers, they're awesome. I mean, they do a lot of good work. They really help people. But a lot of times somebody will walk in and ask them a question and see if they're eligible. And what they get back is no. And no may mean no, I don't have time to talk about it. No may mean you're not eligible. Who knows what it actually means? But we've talked to, we helped 320 people last year. So of those
320 veterans.
320 veterans.
We just give them a round of applause for that.
And the other piece of this, no charge, right? Anybody who charges you for this stuff, they're breaking the law. If somebody wants to apply for veterans benefits, the process of, once you say to somebody, I want to apply for my benefits, and you bring them the application, or they touch the application, they cannot charge you anymore. So be very cautious about that.
Can I interrupt and ask a couple of quick questions? Out of that 320 odd, how many were approved?
Out of the last 12 months, every one.
Wow.
Yeah, we're at 100%. In the last 6 years, we've had one. So I do this nationally. I'm on a board. I created an organization that helps people, trains professionals and volunteers across the country. So nationally, in the last 12 months, we've had 6 people denied out of 2,000 people we helped.
Wow.
In my 6 years doing it this way here in Nevada, we've only had one person denied.
So I'd be crazy to try to do it on my own when it's going to cost me nothing to have expertise to get it done. What's the difference of me doing it on my own in terms of how long this might take versus having you do it?
Yeah, so the difference is we're going to make you work a little harder up front. We turn in a perfect application every time. But the real benefit is on the back side, we only submit claims in what's called the fully developed claim process, which means we know you're eligible, and we're affirming to the VA that here's your claim, everything on this claim is true, and it's accurate, and we're eligible. And if we do that, it's a 90-day adjudication. We've had people get their first check within 10 days. We're good at it. You know, if you do it on your own, we've had people come in 3 years after they submitted the application, and they just keep going back and forth, and because the file's never been closed, you know, you're operating on 3-year-old information, and they're still not eligible. So it's important to do the front end, the legwork up front, and know what you're looking for up front.
I think the sad part though is when people are denied, get a denial letter and give up because they've either applied too early before they're getting care, and they just think, like, I'm done, unqualified period.
Yeah, actually that's really good. So, you know, a lot of the training I'm sure everybody up here has had, everybody in the world has, is no doesn't mean no. It means no right now, or not right now. With the VA, that's absolutely true, because you will get it. People have gotten denials, and the denial isn't an absolute denial. It's like, we're denying you because your bank didn't call us back. You know, we're denying you because your doctor didn't sign the physician's report. But unless you know how to read those letters, you'll never get there. What you see is denied, and then they tell you all the things they did. And there's literally a page and a half of all the work the VA did, which, by the way, it's all a form letter. They didn't do all that. The part that they did do is about halfway down the second page, where it says you're denied for these reasons. But even there, we literally had somebody got denied because the physician's report wasn't signed, came in, but that isn't what the denial said. The denial said inadequate medical records, failure to, you know, or ineligibility due to inadequate medical care or something like that, I can't remember. And we're like, you know, I'm looking at the physician's report, I'm like, are you kidding me? The person's in a wheelchair, they got, you know, it's like, they're like the perfect applicant. And then I actually read it and saw there was no signature. It's like, oh, well, let's try this. And so we had the doc sign and send it in, and they got approved.
Awesome. One last question for just at the moment, I'll come back to you. I know there's a lot of proud veterans who are reluctant to apply for the VA benefit because they see it as being maybe a handout or something. Do you have any comments or thoughts to that?
I got a big comment on that.
First,
yeah. You know, I don't know, how, it doesn't look like we have any World War II vets here, but if you haven't read The Greatest Generation, read it. You know, I read that book, and those men and women from World War II, you know, everything this planet has, we owe to them. Everything. Europe, Toyota, you like your Honda Civic, guess what? It's that generation. You like coming in here having air conditioning, guess what? That generation. They earned it. You know, you look at any veteran, right? You look at anybody who's gone out and served our country, right? This is part of what you got when you signed on the dotted line. You put on that uniform. They made a bunch of promises to you. They took a lot of them away. I mean, you know, I fight for some of them, but you know, they're gone. Congress changes it, the VA changes their mind. You know, those of you who are married to a veteran, those of you who wore the uniform, you know, this is something you earned. It's not a handout. It was a promise made to you. Take advantage of it.
Thanks, Richard. All said. Thank you. So let's round of applause here. So let's move to two types of financing that are often misunderstood: Medicare and Medicaid. Do we have any experts other than my panelists here on Medicare and Medicaid? A little confusing, isn't it? I've researched for today and I'm still confused, so it's tough. So Ivan, before we specifically talk about Medicare and Medicaid, can you just tell me, or tell us, what SHIP is and what the role of access to healthcare is here in relation to SHIP, and what you guys do and how you can help our audience?
So, SHIP is the State Health Insurance Program. It is a program that is free Medicare counseling to all the residents of Nevada that have questions on their Medicare and their benefits. The role here with Access to Healthcare Network is we're a nonprofit organization, and we represent the state of Nevada doing this program, running the program statewide.
Fantastic, thank you. So I know a lot of us know what Medicare and Medicaid is, and maybe a little bit about how it works, but I know some adult children or people approaching retirement age don't fully understand it, if anyone does. Could you just help us understand a little bit the difference between what is Medicare and what is Medicaid in its simplest form?
So Medicare is the federal insurance program that you guys all have paid for and into and worked for your whole life. So that is a benefit that you receive at the age of 65 at retirement, or you can receive it if you receive disability for 24 months. Medicaid is a state program that is based on income and resources, and that is an insurance typically for under the age of 65 and children and kids.
So, regarding Medicare, can you just help us understand, does Medicare pay for our senior living?
So Medicare does not pay for senior living.
Say that again.
Medicare does not pay for senior living.
So does Medicaid pay for senior living?
Yeah, it could, but it also it will depend on your income and resources.
So I'm a little confused because I know people will go in and maybe have surgery or need rehab or some other reason they'll be going into rehab, and Medicare pays for that, doesn't it?
Yes. So the only way that Medicare would pay for a skilled nursing facility or a rehab is if you're in the hospital for 3 days consecutively and your doctor or physician decides that it's time for you to leave the hospital but you still need care. So then your doctor would send a referral and send you to a skilled nursing facility. At that point, then Medicare would pay 100% for your care at the skilled nursing facility for the first 20 days. After on the 21st day, from the 21st day to the 100th day of being in the skilled nursing facility, you have a 20% co-insurance that you would have to pay for your care. Then after the 100th day, Medicare stops, and there's no more coverage.
So Medicare is not going to help me with senior living in terms of independent living, assisted living, memory care. It's only in the case that you just explained.
Correct. It will not.
So 20 days I'm covered, and then on the 21st day in the nursing community home where I am, they're going to come to me and say, "How do you want to pay for this?" For days 21 onwards.
Yes. So most likely the facility will come to you and say, "Okay, here it is. How are we gonna pay for this?"
So we either need to have some cash or some other source of funding in order to. And am I correct from the reading that I did? If I'm in nursing care, it's about $164 a day I'm going to have to come up with from day 21 to day 100. That sounds about right?
Yeah, or probably even more.
Probably even more. And then after day 100, I'm up for the whole bill.
They're up for the whole bill.
Okay, wow. So that could be really expensive.
Yes, really expensive.
Okay. So what do people do after the first 20 days have ran out? Is there an option now with Medicaid to help in any way?
So again, Medicaid could come into play and to pay that portion, but again, it's going to be based on your income and your amount of resources and assets. So the state of Nevada looks at things as resources and assets being what you have in the savings accounts, what you have in IRAs, 401ks, any multiple homes, anything. They exclude one home and one vehicle that they don't count, but everything past that they count.
What do they exclude a home?
Exclude one home, your primary home, just one vehicle. So let me just understand. So Medicare is not going to pay for any of those ongoing costs. Medicaid might, but it depends on my assets and my income. Because I think a lot of people assume, well, if they move me, I'll let Medicaid take care of it. And that's probably not a good way to go, is it? That's probably not thinking things through very well. So just tell us, to give us an idea, what can I have in terms of resources or assets, you said? How much can I have?
Mm-hmm. So typically, you can not have more than $2,000 in resources.
How much?
$2,000 in resources.
So if I have $2,010 in my savings account or a CD, or I'm out of luck, I don't qualify.
Most of the time, probably not.
Wow. So I guess that would exclude a lot of us. We would not qualify.
Yes.
Yeah. So a house is fine if we have a house, if we have a car, but if we have any funds more than $2,000, we're out of luck.
Yes, correct.
So I would suggest relying on Medicaid is probably not a great plan for a lot of people.
It is not.
No.
It is not the best plan to rely on.
So does everyone get the difference between Medicare and Medicaid? Is that kind of clear? Okay, great. So Medicaid is really there for those who are low income and need the help. It's not something for us to rely and plan on that Medicaid's going to necessarily help us out. Would that be a fair comment?
That is fair.
Okay,
That's
great.
correct.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add at the moment, Ivan?
I just would like to add that we are here in Reno and statewide we have counselors that have been doing this for a long time, that if you ever have questions with your benefits on Medicare or just don't know if Medicare will cover something, give us a call and we will provide that free service.
So that's access to healthcare they want to contact, and you've got materials at the back at the end.
Yeah, we got our brochures with our phone number back there.
So
Are you
encourage everyone to
access
take one of those
healthcare?
brochures. So can I get you just to hold your question until we get to Q&A, please? Thank you so much. We'll come back to you. Just write it down and I'll definitely come back to you. So we've talked about Veterans Aid and Dependents, we've talked about Medicare, Medicaid, and some people may qualify, some may not. But what I'd like to do now is talk about long-term care insurance as another possible way of us handling our care expenses as we go on. So I'd like to, just before I come to you, Dennis, just out of curiosity, how many people have long-term care insurance in one form or another? Okay, so maybe like a third of the audience. Okay, thank you. So Dennis, why do many people choose to self-insure and have long-term care insurance? And yeah, let's just start there.
Well, to self-insure, you need to have a pretty substantial chunk of money set aside for care, not subject to market fluctuations, and basically that can be accessed readily, and you don't have to worry about principal erosion. So typically, unless you're a high net worth individual, self-insurance isn't really a great idea, and I do have some high net worth individuals who purchase long-term care just because they look at it as they're leveraging their money. If we can take $100,000 and leverage it up to $500,000, it's a business decision at that point. So, yeah.
So great answer. I guess I misphrased. I was trying to get at why would I buy long-term care insurance?
Oh, why would you buy long-term care insurance? Well, as we discussed, you said the average cost of care, would you say $164? If you go into a facility, at least in northern Nevada, daily care is running about, for a skilled nursing facility, $239 a day. So if you have to stay in a facility for a longer period of time, I don't care how much money you've got, if you're writing a check for $75,000 or $80,000 a year, that's going to deplete a pretty substantial chunk of money. And again, most people buy insurance because they want an aging place. They want to stay in their home. They would rather have a company come in with a custodian to make sure mom doesn't wander out into the street, leave the stove on, burn the house down, stuff like that. Because 80% of the claims that I've been dealing with are above the neck.
So could you tell us again how much care per year costs at the high end, or the average U.S. care cost?
Average U.S. cost in the United States is between $75,000 and $80,000 a year. That's for a skilled nursing home facility. Now, obviously, if you live in a place like New York City, Anchorage, Alaska, LA, prices are considerably higher because it's a supply and demand issue. So that's one reason why people buy long-term care insurance, is just to leverage their assets. Do you want to pay with this with 100 penny assets, or do you want to pay for it with insurance company assets?
I'm guessing most of us don't have $70,000 to $80,000 lying around that we could sustain year after year to pay for care. I know I don't. So long-term care insurance would be something worth looking at. So I know it can be really complex, and there are different types of long-term care insurance. Can you maybe just talk about the different types and options that are available?
Sure. In the insurance realm, long-term care insurance is a fairly new product. It's only been out for since the late 70s, 40 some odd years. When the original policies came out, they were specifically written for facility care, meaning the underwriters determined that most people would want to receive care in a facility. So a lot of them had a lot of restrictions and long waiting days and restrictions on the activities of daily living that Rich talked about. The triggers for long-term care are the inability to feed yourself, bathe yourself, dress yourself, get out of bed or transfer, toileting, incontinence, and 2 out of the 6 of those is enough to trigger or a cognitive impairment in and of itself is enough to trigger. Cognitive impairment meaning dementia, senility, Alzheimer's. So, long-term care has evolved over the last several years. Most of the policies that are issued, that have been issued in the last 10 to 12 years, have a very good home care benefit, because again, most people want to stay in familiar surroundings, they want to age in place, they want to have the ability to stay in their home. So, and most policies issued will pay up to certain specified dollar amounts for modifications to your home, whether they be grab bars or wheelchair ramps, etc.
Okay, great. So just let me help understand. So I can pay a premium per month.
Correct.
What were the other couple of types, ways of taking it?
Well, you can, okay, so the different types of long-term care insurance. The first pure long-term care insurance is you either pay a monthly or annual premium for a monthly benefit. Let's just say $3,000 a month. You're paying $200 a month for a $3,000 a month benefit, and there's a waiting period. Look at the waiting period as your deductible. You can have a 90-day, 180-day, 365-day waiting period. After you go on claim, you have to pay out of pocket for that waiting period. We'll say 90 days. After 90 days, you're eligible to receive benefit. And like Richard alluded to, with most long-term care policies that have been issued in the last 8 years, we'll say, they're a reimbursement plan. So you submit receipts for skilled nursing home care or for custodial care to the insurance company, and then they will send you a reimbursement check.
Okay.
So that's type. I mean, there's a lot of other things that go along with that, but that's the basic type. The second type of plan.
Can I stop you for one
Yeah,
moment?
sure.
What's the cost? You said a couple of hundred months, or are we looking at 2 3?
Average, okay.
Because it
I
depends on
can
age,
give you an
obviously.
average, yeah, because it's based on health and age. You know what they say about averages? If you have 1 foot in a bucket of coals and 1 foot in a bucket of ice water, on average, you should be comfortable, right? So, that being said, on average, most people are paying between $150 and $300 a month per person.
So 2 to 3, 3,500 a year, somewhere in that
Yeah,
range.
between $2,500 and $3,000 a year per person.
Okay.
Okay, so that's on a traditional long-term care plan, and one of the nice things about that specific product is if you're employed, if you own a business, you have a home-based business, there is some tax deductibility to that. So that makes it a little bit more palatable if you've got access to a business and can have a business pay for some or all of it. So that's type 1. Type 2 is a hybrid product, and it's a combination life insurance, long-term care / annuity type contract. It's usually issued in a single premium, meaning, let's say you have $100,000 in a CD that you've got for your rainy day fund. Okay, well, CDs, anybody here getting better than 1% on the CD? Not happening. But it's your rainy day fund. So what we can do, assuming you're in good health, we can leverage that $100,000 into maybe $150,000 or a $200,000 life insurance policy, which most people, buy that for the life insurance, because more importantly, you can leverage that $100,000 into maybe a $500,000 long-term care benefit. And then that is paid out on a monthly basis, depending upon the care, typically between $4,000 and $5,000 a month, until that $500,000 is exhausted.
So I could kind of use that maybe as a catch-up if I've waited till later in life and haven't been paying by the month, and I have
Correct.
a chunk of money, I could
Right, and it's all specific to what your individual, financial situation is. If you've got $100,000 laying around and it's not doing anything, lazy money, we like to call it, then yeah, it might make sense to transfer it. If you don't have those kinds of assets, then maybe a traditional type product is better.
Okay, understood.
And then the third type is what's called, it's a life insurance and a chronic care rider. It operates similar to the second one that I just described, but we'll say you buy a $100,000 life insurance policy, and it comes with a $100,000 chronic care rider. If you die, we pay. If you go on claim, we'll pay the $100,000 for care, but once that's exhausted, then it's pretty much done.
Okay. So a couple of follow-up questions that come to mind is, when should I start paying into long-term care insurance?
Now,
Now, okay. So now, yesterday. Is there an age at which I'm beyond, I can no longer qualify based on age for long-term care? And what about health? Can you just
okay, every product, 98% of the products that we have access to are all health-driven.
So they need to be healthy.
So you need to be healthy to buy a true long-term care product.
What does healthy mean?
Healthy means no heart attack, stroke, cancer, diabetes, back issues, major surgeries, TIAs, anything like that. Now, that being said, I had a 72-year-old with a pacemaker get a long-term care policy. So a lot has to do based on what your overall health is, and primarily what your physician has written in your medical records. So health is a major concern, and then the other one is age. Usually, by the time we hit 75 to 80, we start getting phased out because it's either too costly, or you can't qualify, or we can't find a carrier for you.
Okay. So the strategy that I know some people, perhaps employers, I'll wait till something happens to me when I'm diagnosed or I've had a stroke, is probably not a good strategy.
No, not good.
Not a good plan.
It's kind of the guy who called me, just got diagnosed with cancer and wanted to buy life insurance. It's a little bit late for that.
Yeah. Okay, so we definitely need to plan ahead. Thank you. And then, what questions should the audience be asking if they're considering long-term care insurance and they call someone? What would be good questions that you would suggest they should be asking? Get your pens ready.
Yeah.
Want to write these down?
The first thing I would talk to, if you're talking to a broker or planner about long-term care insurance, you'd want to find out what the financial stability rating is of the carrier. You want to have preferably a AAA rated company that's going to issue your policy. When I started in this business 30 years ago, there was over 200 insurance companies writing long-term care. Now we're down to 8. So, one, you want to find out what the financial stability is of the company, because the reality is you're going to buy a product that, well, hopefully you're never going to go on claim, but if you do go on claim, it's not going to be for 20 or 25 years. Most of the claims start around age 80 or 85. So you want to make sure the company's going to be around to pay the claim. The second most important question that I would ask is, what has the carrier's premium pricing been? Meaning, how many rate increases have they had in the last 10 or 15 years? I'm dealing with a lot of clients who have bought policies 15, 20 years ago, and now they're getting 25, 30, 100, 200% rate increases.
Wow.
And either they're not healthy enough to buy a new policy, or because of their age, they can't afford to change it, so they're forced to pay the rate increase. And then what we look at is we go to the carrier and we say, okay, well, maybe we want to reduce some of the benefit in order to keep the policy in force.
So this is totally different to like a term life policy where it's fixed. This one changes.
This
That's
one
true
can
for all
change.
of them.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. It's not a guaranteed premium. The companies reserve the right to raise the premium. Now, they just can't arbitrarily raise the premium. They have to go to the state insurance commissioner and get authorization. But what has happened over the last 20 plus years is carriers got into the market, they undercut the premium, they rated them improperly, and the most important factor is we've been in a really low interest rate environment for well over a decade. So the projections of 10 or 12% on a fixed asset is now down to like 2 or 3%. So they're not making enough money on it to write a new product.
Got it. So can I give you a great website that several people have recommended to me if you want to find out more about long-term care insurance? I'd suggest give Dennis a call and talk to him. But if you want to go online and do your own research, the American Association of Long-Term Care Insurance is the website. And to spell it out, is AA, American Association, LTCI, American Association Long-Term Care Insurance. So just the letter of each of those words, .org. And they've got a section on there for consumers. It's non-biased. It's no one pushing product or anything. It's just a great resource of information if you want to learn more. I'd recommend going there. So you mentioned something about turning on your long-term care. So I've heard that a few times, and I've heard people being reluctant to start using their long-term care. What does it mean to turn it on?
Well, once you go on claim or the triggers, let's just say you get dementia and your physician says, yes, you've got dementia, and that qualifies you for long-term care. Your waiting period starts from the day you get approved, and then after that, we'll say 90 days, then you can start receiving benefits. I've had a conversation with several people who said, well, I waited because I wanted to pay now why anyone would want to wait to pay out of pocket is beyond me. But my recommendation is, even if you don't think you're going to qualify, start the claims process, because it's better to have a track record. And in my opinion, why not use the insurance company's money first before you're spending down your assets? I mean, do you have to take money out of a qualified plan and pay taxes on it versus using the long-term care insurance money? That's, you know, so those are some of the conversations that we have. What are some of the best assets to get rid of first? You know, when do we trigger the long-term care, etc.
Okay, great, thank you. So by turning it on doesn't mean I have to permanently be on it. If I've had surgery or something, I meet 2 of the 6 active daily, I can go on it, I recover, then I can go back off it until a later time.
Right, so you go on claim, let's say you're on claim for a year, and then you get better, you go off claim, then the benefits stop being paid out, and the pool starts to replenish itself.
It does replenish?
It does, at a much slower rate, but yeah. And you have to start paying premiums again, too.
Right, okay, great. What else did I have? How long does it last?
You buy, well, not anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 20 years ago, you could buy a lifetime benefit policy, and those don't exist anymore. So if anyone in the audience has a lifetime benefit policy, depending upon the carrier, you know, you want to hang on to it because you can't buy those anymore. Typically, we buy a pool of money anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000, and though that gets paid out typically in a monthly benefit, anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month. So once that pool of money is exhausted, then the insurance is gone. So what we have to realize is, for a male, okay, again, we're getting back to the averages, so take this with a grain of salt, but the average claim for a male is 3.2 years. The average claim for a female is 2.8 years. Now those numbers are skewed because a lot of people receive care at home, the spouse is the caregiver, so those numbers aren't reported. But that's usually a good starting place to figure, okay, how much would it cost me for 3 years of care, and how much of that cost would I want to shift to an insurance policy?
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I see Ryan over there. Can I borrow your microphone, Ivan? So Ryan's one of our sponsors. He works for Armada Senior Care. And I know, Ryan, that you do a lot of work with long-term care insurance and care in the home. Could you just tell us a little bit about any suggestions, recommendations you'd have for people who either are looking to use their long-term care policy or why they should have one, just from your experience?
Yes, so long-term care insurance pays typically 100% of our fee. And it depends, of course, on the monthly maximum or the daily maximum. But our caregivers provided in your home for non-medical care. Long-term care insurance will pay for that. Now, the nice thing about having an in-home care company like ours is, or any company out there, is the elimination period or the waiting period, as he was saying, you know, that 90 days where you're paying out of pocket, that does not apply to us. In most cases, I'd say 95% of the claims that I have right now, they do not apply to us. So the beauty there is that you can, if you're waiting to go into an assisted living community or something like that, you can have a caregiver from any company like mine that does non-medical care come in for that 90 days, and your elimination period is done by the time you're moving into an assisted living community. So we really love dealing with long-term care insurance because it pays most, if not all, of our fee, and it chips away at the waiting period to where you can move in then to an assisted living community and you're basically not having, you're having minimal out-of-pocket costs at that point.
Can you just comment on clients that you help that have long-term care insurance and taking advantage of that versus those who don't, just financially kind of what you experience? Who's better off?
Long-term care insurance, for sure. So with a non-medical company like ours or anyone out there, There's two types of ways we can pay for it: private pay and long-term care insurance. There's really nothing else. Medicare and Medicaid doesn't cover it. So the clients that I see that have long-term care insurance typically get their needs met with minimal or no out-of-pocket, versus private pay, where it's way too cost prohibitive for them to pay for a service, or any type of service like ours. So cash pay, long-term care insurance. We can also utilize VA benefits, but that's something that Rich spoke about. So there's very few ways that folks can pay for services like ours. And I saw a lot of hands go up that have long-term care insurance. I think that the best time is now to get the policy, to get the claim going. I mean, you know, the term I always say is, nobody said I wish I would have waited. So get stuff moving now, and you know, we can consult with you. We can come talk to us afterward, but we really help people navigate through their policy and exactly what the benefits are.
Great, thank you so much, Ryan. And can you just pass the microphone over to Maggie? We have two great other people here that are reverse mortgage experts, and Dennis talked about briefly an annuity, being able to pay money in. We don't all necessarily have cash flow to be able to pay for long-term care insurance, and a lot of us probably have a lot of money tied up in our house, and we want to stay in our house. So I just wanted to quickly ask you, Maggie, and we also have Debbie Wood, another reverse mortgage expert here with Eagle Mortgage. Maggie's with Federal Savings Bank. But could I don't know if it would make sense to do this, but could I actually use a reverse mortgage to take money out of my property to fund long-term care? Or is there another way I can use a reverse mortgage to help with care?
Yes, thank you, Brett. If you have equity in your home, you can use that to fund the long-term care premiums, or to fund an annuity, or you can also just self-insure through a line of credit with reverse mortgage. Now, a reverse mortgage doesn't require monthly payments, so that's the key with that program. But an interesting fact that a lot of people don't know is that you can set up a line of credit that grows over time. And I'm going to give you a little example. A 69-year-old, it's based on age, so this is just an example of a 69-year-old with a $450,000 home. They start out with a line of credit of $260,000. After 10 years, without using it, just letting it grow, that has grown to $460,000 estimated. It could be more. It's based on the current interest rate. So if interest rates are higher, you'll have a higher growth. So that is available to you. Now, if you don't draw it, it's not costing you anything because it's not no interest charged on the line of credit to have the growth. If you let that sit there for another 10 years, that's $850,000.
Wow.
After 25 years, it's over $1 million. Now that is not, they can't cancel it. This is an FHA insured loan. It can't be canceled. So another thing about that is it kind of is a hedge against depreciation in your home, because you can take that out. Even if your home, you know, there's a market crash, your home has gone down in value, and you can let that sit for 25 years, you can pull $1 million out as long as you're still living in your home. And it sounds kind of, there's a lot to say that I can't tell you right here.
No, you've got
But I have a workshop next week, 2 workshops, Wednesday and Thursday, and I'll be passing out these little cards with the information on that after.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maggie, for answering that. So yeah, Maggie and Debbie are great resources. Reverse mortgages aren't for everyone. I would talk to a wealth advisor, the guys here, before doing that, and talk to them and find the pros and cons. But for some people, it makes a lot of sense. For other people, it doesn't. But it's just good for us to be informed and know what the various different options are. So thank you. So just before we move to question and answer, we're just coming up to 3 o'clock. I would just like to ask you, Rich and Dennis, if it doesn't make sense for me to use Veterans Aid and Attendance or Medicare, Medicaid or long-term care insurance because of my age or health or whatever the case may be, what other options do people have? What else should we be doing to try to maximize our situation? Can you give any thoughts, closing comments on that?
You know, there's a couple of them that I've got. One is look at getting eligible for the Medicaid benefit, senior Medicaid, because there's a nursing home benefit. Nevada has some community-based care waivers available. like that. And there is a way that, you know, if with pre-planning done ahead in advance, which I don't really want to talk a whole lot about here, where you may be able to protect substantially more than you would if you waited until a crisis showed up. So that's the first thing. The other thing I would do is don't wait too long. I think Dennis said it very well. You know, a lot of us, you know, look at it in our situation and think there's no answer. We're done. You know, Dennis gave an example of a guy who qualified for long-term care. He had cancer, right?
No, pacemaker.
Pacemaker. Pacemaker. And he got his insurance. You know, a lot of times we just think we can't, so we don't ask. The surest way to fail is not to try. And, you know, if you don't actually, you know, if it's something you're concerned with, you know, give us a call, give Dennis a call, give me a call. And, you know, even if it's on the phone, right, we can just quickly answer a couple of questions for you, maybe find out if there is anything there. The other thing that I would look at is move, I mean, this sounds really funny, but move close to your kids or have them move close to you. A lot of the reason why people end up in skilled care, a lot of the reason they end up in rehab, a lot of the reason they end up permanently placed in assisted living, slip and fall, not eating, not taking your medicine, getting sick and not getting it taken care of, right? Oh my gosh, I have pneumonia, I can't breathe, I need to go to the doctor. Wait, I can't breathe, I can't drive. And so you end up staying home. You know, the number of clients I've had over the 25 years or so that ended up in care because of a broken hip because they slipped and fell when they were doing something they shouldn't do, like falling off the ladder trying to clean the gutters when they're 82. Shoveling snow. Yeah. So, you know, I know it's kind of silly, but, you know, having kids nearby can mitigate that, grandkids. Or consider, you know, having somebody come in a few hours a week to help you out. You know, aging in place sometimes, successfully aging in place doesn't necessarily mean having somebody come in and provide, you know, non-medical or medical care for an extended period of time. It may mean just somebody coming in and helping you make sure that the top shelves of your cabinets have nothing in them anymore. You just can't reach that high. Or you can, but you gotta get up on your tippy toes on that step ladder and can barely make it. You know, I'm getting older, some of those things I can't do anymore. So that's probably the like non-financial things I would look at.
Okay, thank you. Dennis?
Couple of things. First of all, I bought, when I said buy it now, I bought my first policy when I was 40 years old. And I bought another one when I was 50, and now I'm uninsurable. So I can't buy any more long-term care or life insurance or any other insurance products. So the reason that I tell you to buy it now is, one night I was sitting, I have 3 children, and this was a long time ago, we were sitting in the living room watching TV, and we had 2 dogs at the time. And in the laundry room, we had a metallic bowl for their water. So all 3 of the kids were sitting on the couch watching TV, and the dog starts smacking the bowl because it was empty, didn't have any water. And you could hear this thing like a pinball going off in the laundry room. So I got up, put the water in the bowl, and came back. And the next day, I bought long-term care insurance. And I came home the next night, and I told my kids, I just bought you guys the best present you will ever receive. And they said, what's that? I said, long-term care insurance. Because if the way you take care of the dogs is any way that you're going to take care of me, I don't want any part of it. So that was one. 2 is, as far as, you know, Rich talked about non-financial. What if you're uninsurable? What if you can't purchase long-term care? We've done some work with annuities, income streams, buying municipal bonds, and putting some money away, and doing some IRA. There's some IRA stuff that you can do if you might be insurable, but you know, income annuities and fixed annuities. In the state of Nevada, life insurance cash values and annuity cash values are 100% creditor protected from creditors, predators, and crazy ex-spouses. So that's something that is well worth investigating. So, you know, sit down with somebody like Rich and I, we can look at your situation, and 90% of the time we can come up with a solution that maybe you haven't thought of, because we do this on a regular basis.
Thank you, Dennis. Can I just go to Ivan and I'll come back to you, Rich? Did you have anything you wanted to add, Ivan?
Just as Rich mentioned earlier, we want to I'm glad that Brett does these to give people the plan ahead, because Earlier when I mentioned that Medicaid does not pay for long-term care or institution, there is a way to get there. We just didn't want to go in there because it's really complicated. But there is a way to protect yourself through different trusts. But again, speaking to these experts, I'm sure they can explain those trusts. But there is alternatives that where Medicaid could end up paying for your skilled nursing facility if you have more than the $2,000 income or resources. So we just always want to tell people to plan ahead, to not depend on that as a source of having that to pay for your long-term care.
Great, thanks, Ivan. Yeah, I just implore everyone just to take control and see if you can improve your situation for later on. Because I know most people, just from research and studies, it's kind of more of the head in the sand approach. They'll worry about it when something happens, and as you've heard, it's too late. So even if there's not a lot you can do, just knowing what you can do and improving your situation for later, I just encourage you to talk to experts and just be educated so that you can, if there are things you can do, do them instead of waiting until it's too late and then you just have to go where you get pushed kind of thing. You had something you wanted to say and then we'll open it up for question and answer.
Oh, it's basically, you guys caught it already, is, use the experts around you. We're here today, ask us questions. Just because you don't have the answer doesn't mean somebody else isn't there. We do this every day. You do whatever you do every day. I can't do what you do. We know a lot, just, after I don't know how many combined years of experience, I'm not going to say, but a lot. So, use expertise. Just because you can't think of an answer, you think there isn't one, doesn't mean that there isn't one.
Fantastic, well said. And that applies to all of our sponsors over here from the different living communities that we have, from the lenders. They're all here as a resource to help you. They're not going to try to sell you anything. If they don't know the answer, they'll call someone else to try to find you an answer. We promise not to leave you hanging. We'll do everything we can to find answers for you. So, does anyone have questions? Let's open it up for question and answer. Or did we answer everything? I see some hands. So the way this will work, I'll just work my way around the room and I'll repeat your question. If you want to ask someone specific, just let me know who. I'll repeat it so everyone can hear and then we'll just go from there. So Madge, you had a question.
Okay, I'm not sure whether I would need to do one or not, but this involves many of the seniors have senior health care, which is hometown care rather than Medicare. So would that same principle apply? Or is it a whole?
So the question is, many of the seniors here have senior care, hometown care. How does that interact with Medicare, Medicaid, if at all?
Yeah, so what she's talking about is the Medicare Advantage plan. So those are very popular in this area. We would have to look at that benefit. I'm not a whole lot familiar on their benefits, particularly Senior Care Plus. So we would have to look at their benefit on their coverages, but most of them typically cover almost the exact benefits that Medicare does.
Great question. Next question over here, Raymond?
For Rich.
For Rich? Yep.
For a lot of VA benefits, they tell me I got out of the months too early to qualify for Vietnam. Would that also apply to the North?
So the question to Rich was, I've been told when I've applied for benefits that I got out of the armed services 11 months too early in terms of Vietnam and I don't qualify. Do I understand that correct? Yeah. And would that be true and how do I verify that's the case?
Maybe. The dates for this benefit is a little bit different. So generally it's the same dates. The exception for Vietnam is if you can prove you were boots on the ground, it's as early as 1962. But you've got to be able to prove your boots on the ground in Southeast Asia. And we've worked with people who, I literally have a photocopy of a Viet Cong officer through a sniper scope that this guy kept. And the military will not acknowledge he was in country. We actually, it's funny because we have his airplane tickets, we have the stamps on his travel papers showing him arriving, and they still won't say he's there. But give me a call and look at the dates, but it's generally the same dates as you have. I think it started in 1964, but I don't know the exact month for most of us. Yeah, August of 64.
Okay, thank you. Next question, down the back.
Yeah, I want to address this to the people who are coming here from independent living centers.
Okay.
I think as everyone in this room knows,
that housing prices have skyrocketed in Reno in the last 3 years. I think since I've been here 6 months ago, prices have gone up in housing 10%. So if you take a one-bedroom independent living apartment today that's $3,300, I'm using a hypothetical, and we know that Medicare is going up really like 1% a year, maybe if that. What's to prevent someone going in who can afford a place now in 7 years until that $3,300 a month is now $5,500?
Okay, so your question.
I know they've got to make money, but I mean.
No, sure, yeah, they got to keep up with cost of living inflation.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
Would any of our communities like to comment about how costs are, how they do, obviously they do increase, but how that's controlled as best as possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the 3% anymore before the recession.
Sure, and then also, the second part of that, I guess, does Medicare help in that way in an independent living community? And I believe the answer is no. Laurie, do you want to take that?
Thank you. I'm with Promenade on the River, which is an independent retirement community. So our annual increases are reviewed, but not based on the real estate market. So I think it's separate from the housing market, the apartment, real estate market. So we run a business that is inclusive of services, and those services are broad. So that includes fuel, because we provide transportation. It includes food. So you have food prices that might affect the cost of doing business. You have property taxes. We have a building we pay property taxes on. We have a sewer bill with the city of Reno that's just as expensive as the sewer bill that I pay for my house. So there's a lot of expenses and factors that go into running a community. But it's so much bigger than just the real estate market. So it's really about reviewing a budget. So in our case, it's about keeping pace with inflation. Some things go up, some things go down. Several years ago when gasoline was over $4 a gallon, we had to take that into consideration. But on average in senior living across the country, annual increases are somewhere between 3 and 7%. That's kind of broad, but that's an average as they were talking about. So it is a review that each company does, and it's just separate from real estate. And I think the communities will also deal with their residents in a very caring, respectful way. So if you've lived somewhere for 10 years, I know we do this for our residents, I don't think it's fair that they go through 10 years of increases, but it is about just doing what's right for individuals. So our average increases are still down around 2.4%. It's not tied to the real estate market.
Okay, great, thanks. Laurie, while I have you, can I use Medicare or Medicaid if I'm in an independent living community?
No. And here's because to be in an independent living community, you need to be able to be independent. And that means you have to be able to perform those activities of daily living, which is where these benefits apply, is when you cannot. So if you should need to bring in care to support your independent living, which we allow people to do, the cost of that care, that additional care, could be supplied by long-term care or some other policy, but it's still a private pay in independent living.
Great, thanks, Laurie. Next question? Yes.
Is long-term care insurance benefit checks taxable?
Are long-term care benefit checks taxable? Who would like to take that?
No. No taxes. Typically, they're paid with after-tax dollars. The benefit is tax-free. The IRS does have some leverage guidelines on it. I think it's like up to $381 a day. But no, for the most part, they're not. The really cool thing is if you are still working or you have a home-based business or something, you can write the long-term care policy and deduct the premium, and even that does not make the benefit taxable. So we do a lot of stuff with business owners, and that's a huge one to leverage that. Yeah.
Thank you. Great question. Yes.
My question is for you, Rick. I'm a veteran, and my wife is very concerned that if something happens to me, she's left hanging. Did I understand you to say that veterans benefits continue for a married spouse after I die?
So the question was, we have a veteran, his wife, spouse is very concerned about what happens to her when he passes. Is there any coverage from the veteran's aid and attendance that would help her? Do I understand that correctly? And that was directed to you, Rich.
Yeah, a veteran's benefit belongs to the veteran. There are some benefits that terminate when the veteran passes. The most notable one is TRICARE insurance. Typically that's only, and again, it varies a lot depending when you served, how long you served, what dates you discharged, but TRICARE, for example, belongs to the veteran dies, it goes away. The aid and attendance benefit and the related benefits of death indemnity claims, some disability benefits, do continue for the spouse, usually at a reduced amount. And that amount varies. You know, for example, aid and attendance, a married veteran's going to collect just over $2,000. A widow's going to get $1,100. So it falls substantially there. But disability benefits, you know, if you're getting $2,000 service-related disability, you've been getting it for 10 years or more, your wife's going to get $1,154 disability benefit a month automatically under death indemnity claim. So it depends on the nature of the benefit, but in this arena, most of them would continue.
And can I just clarify, is that irrespective of the widow's health needs? Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, very good. So the widow has to be eligible medically. So need care, receiving care, paying for care before the aid and attendance benefit would kick in. It's not an automatic payment. Some of the other ones I talked about, the death indemnity claims, disability indemnity, is paid regardless of the spouse's condition.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question? Rich would be happy to just talk to you at the end or whatever. Yeah, great if you've got specific questions. Who else? So let's go down the back.
Did I understand correctly, did somebody say that Medicaid was basically for people under 65?
That's not true. So the question was, did someone say that Medicaid is basically for people under 65? And I don't believe that was the case, but Ivan, you'd be the person to answer that.
So typically, historically, that is the case, but because at 65 you become eligible to have Medicare as primary. In some cases, you could have Medicaid as a secondary once you're on Medicare, but again, that is based on your income and your resources.
Did that answer your question? So Medicare takes over at 65, Medicaid would become secondary. Rich wants to, yeah. Please add.
Just one thought is there's two versions of Medicaid too, and most of us hear Medicaid, and Medicaid provides primary health insurance for children and eligible individuals up to age 65. But then there's a flavor of Medicaid that provides senior support as well. That if you're eligible to help pay for skilled nursing care, very, very few community waivers, but it's kind of two distinct pieces there. They're separate programs.
Can you see why I have experts here and I'm not trying to educate you? These guys are good. Yes, Joe.
It takes 3, 4, 5 months to be qualified for Medicaid.
So Jones heard it takes 3 to 5 months to be qualified for Medicaid.